Welcome to Research Reads, episode 13. I want to start out by saying I am so grateful that you are listening and supporting Research Reads. My name is Madison, I'm the host, and I hope you continue to have a wonderful day after listening to me read this interesting research paper. Today's paper is called An Updated Overview of E-Cigarette Impact on Human Health. This was written by Patrice Marquis, Laura Piqueras, and Maria Jesus Sans. I probably butchered all those names, but it's totally fine. Of course, I need water right when I start talking. All right, so let's dive into it. The background: electronic nicotine dispensing systems, ENDS. Okay. That reminds me of the SpongeBob episode where they're like, F is for friends who do stuff together, like F-U-N. This is ends. Okay. The fun ends. All right, I'm done. So commonly known as electronic cigarettes or e-cigarettes, or we just call them vapes, have been popularly considered a less harmful alternative to conventional cigarette smoking since they first appeared on the market more than a decade ago. Okay. E-cigarettes, I'm calling them e-cigs. E-cigs are electronic devices essentially consisting of a cartridge filled with an e-liquid, a heating element atomizer necessary to heat the e-liquid to create a vapor that can be inhaled through a mouthpiece and a rechargeable battery. If you don't know what it looks like this. Think of a Juul. Ta-da! So, sorry, that was sassy. Moving on. Both the electronic devices and the different e-liquids are easily available in shops or online stores. The e-liquid typically contains humectants and flavorings with or without nicotine once vaporized by the atomizer. The aerosol, which is the vapor, provides a sensation similar to tobacco smoking, but purportedly without harmful effects. However, it has been reported that the heating process can lead to the generation of new decomposition compounds that may be hazardous. I wanted to say decomposing. The levels of nicotine, which is the key additive component of tobacco, can also vary between the commercially available e-liquids, and even nicotine-free options are available. For this particular reason, e-cigarettes are often viewed as a smoking cessation tool, given that those with nicotine can prevent smoking craving, yet this idea has not been fully demonstrated. Because e-cigarettes are combustion-free, and because most of the damaging and well-known effects of tobacco are derived from this reaction, there is a common and widely spread assumption that e-cigs consumption, or vaping, is safer than conventional cigarette smoking. However, are they risk-free? Is there sufficient toxicology data on all the components employed in e-liquids? Do we really know the composition of the inhaled vapor during the heating process and its impact on health? Can e-cigarettes be used to curb tobacco use? Do their consumption impact on coronavirus disease 2019? Is there an impact? We don't know. I don't know. In the present review, we have attempted to clarify these questions based on the existing scientific literature, and we have compiled new insights related with the toxicity derived from the use of these devices. It's just interesting that they throw in COVID. All right, effective e-cigarette vapor. I'm just saying vapor because that's how they spelled it. Versus conventional cigarette exposure in vivo and in vitro effects. Numerous studies have been performed to evaluate the safety/toxicity of e-cigarette use both in vivo and in vitro cell culture. One of the first studies in humans involved the analysis of 9 volunteers that consumed e-cigarettes with or without nicotine in a ventilated room for 2 hours. Pollutants in indoor air exhaled nitric oxide, NO, and urinary metabolite profiles were analyzed. Hold on, guys. I I'm over my eyes recently. I haven't eaten enough carrots. I should just do a paper on that to prove it. Okay, glasses are on, we're ready. Okay, the results of this acute experiment revealed that e-cigarettes are not emission-free, and ultrafine particles formed from propylene glycol, PG, could be detected in the lungs. The study also suggested that the presence of nicotine in e-cigarettes increased the levels of nitric oxide, or NO, exhaled from consumers and provoked marked airway inflammation. However, no differences were found in the levels of exhaled carbon monoxide, which is CO, an oxidative stress marker before and after e-cigarette consumption. A more recent human study detected significantly higher levels of metabolites of hazardous compounds, including benzene, ethylene oxide, pray for me, acrylonitrile, oh, I think I nailed it actually, acrolein, and acrylamide, in the urine of adolescent dual users, e-cigarettes and conventional tobacco users. Than in adolescent e-cigarette only users. Sometimes I skip the parentheses because it just throws off the way the sentence sounds. Moreover, the urine levels of metabolites of, here we go again, acrylonitrile, acrolein, propylene oxide, acrylamide, and, a new one, crotonaldehyde, all of which are detrimental for human health, were significantly higher in e-cigarette only users than in non-smoker controls, reaching up to twice the registered values of those from non-smoker subjects. In line with these observations, dysregulation of lung homeostasis has been documented in non-smokers subjected to acute inhalation of e-cigarette aerosols. Oh my gosh. Little is known about the effect of vaping on the immune system. Interestingly, that's a weird word. Both traditional and e-cigarette consumption by non-smokers was found to provoke short-term effects on platelet function, increasing platelet activation and platelet aggregation, although to a lesser extent with e-cigarettes. As found with platelets, the exposure of neutrophils to e-cigarette aerosol resulted in increased CD11B and CD66B expression, being both markers of neutrophil activation. If you know what those are, just let me know because I have no idea. Additionally, increased oxidative stress, vascular endothelial damage, impaired endothelial function, and changes in vascular tone have all been reported in different human studies on vaping. In this context, it is widely accepted that platelet and leukocyte activation, as well as endothelial dysfunction, are associated with, atherogenesis and cardiovascular morbidity. Oh my god, I nailed it. Okay. In line with these observations, the potential association of daily e-cigarettes consumption and the increased risk of myocardial infarction, almost said infarction, but it's infarction, there's a C in there, remains controversial, but benefits may occur when switching from tobacco to chronic e-cigarette use in blood pressure regulation, endothelial function, and vascular stiffness. Nevertheless, whether or not e-cigarette vaping has cardiovascular consequences requires further investigation. More recently, in August of 2019, the CDC declared an outbreak of the e-cigarette or vaping product use associated lung injury, EVALI, which caused several deaths in young population. Indeed, computed tomography, a CT scan. Oh, cool. I didn't know it was. Oh, guys, I just put that together. Okay, moving on. If you didn't know what CT scan meant, like me, it is a computed tomography. Revealed local inflammation that impaired gas exchange caused by aerosolized oils from e-cigarettes. However, most of the reported cases of lung injury were associated with the use of e-cigarettes for, You guys know this one though. Tetrahydrocannabinol, THC consumption, as well as vitamin E additives, and not necessarily attributable to other e-cigarette components. Nailed it. On the other hand, in a comparative study of mice subjected to either lab air, e-cigarette aerosol, or cigarette smoke, CS, for 3 days at 6 hours a day, whoa, those exposed, oh my god. But like, as a former smoker, like I'd really try not to switch habits, you know, like trade one for another, but here I am right now. So being exposed to that for 6 hours a day, like that could be like 1 cigarette an hour, 1 cigarette for 6 hours, or like straight up 6 hours straight of just smoke. That's disgusting. Anyways, those exposed to e-cigarette aerosol showed significant increases in interleukin IL-6, but normal lung parenchyma, I think I nailed it, with no evidence of apoptotic activity or elevations in IL-1B or tumor necrosis factor A, TNFA. I don't know, it's a Greek letter. Looks like the A. By contrast, animals exposed to CS showed lung inflammatory cell infiltration and elevations in inflammatory marker expressions such as IL-6, IL-1B, and TNFA. Beyond airway disease, exposure to aerosols from e-liquids with or without nicotine has also been, with or without nicotine has also been associated with neurotoxicity in an early life murine model. Okay, they could have rewritten that sentence. Okay, I'm not doing this again. All right, results. I'm totally doing it. Results from in vitro studies are in general agreement with the limited number of in vivo studies. For example, in an analysis using primary human umbilical vein endothelial cells, HUVEC, exposed to 11 commercially available vapors, 5 were found to be acutely cytotoxic, and only 3 of those contained nicotine. In addition, 5 of the 11 vapors tested, including 4 that were cytotoxic, reduced HUVEC proliferation, and 1 of them increased the production of intracellular reactive oxygen species, an ROS. 3 of the most cytotoxic vapors, with effects similar to those of conventional high nicotine CS extracts, also caused comparable morphological changes. Endothelial cell migration is an important mechanism of vascular repair that can be disrupted in smokers due to endothelial dysfunction. In a comparative study of CS and e-cigarette aerosols, this person found that found that exposure of HUVEC to e-cigarette aqueous extracts. Aqueous extracts for 20 hours did not affect migration in a scratch wound assay, ASSAY, whereas equivalent cells exposed to CS extract showed a significant inhibition in migration that was concentration dependent. We know what's going on. In cultured human airway epithelial cells, both e-cigarette aerosol and CS extract induced IL-8/CXCL8 neutrophil chemoattractant release. In contrast, I think I nailed it. In contrast, while CS extract reduced epithelial barrier integrity determined by the translocation of dextrin from the apical to the basolateral side of the cell layer, I know what that is, e-cigarette aerosol did not, suggesting that CS extract negatively affected host defense. Moreover, Hyam also found that e-cigarette aerosol caused IL-8/CXCL8 and matrix, here we go, metallopeptidase 9 MMP-9, released together with enhanced activity of elastase from neutrophils, which might facilitate neutrophil migration to the site of inflammation. In a comparative study, repeated exposure of human gingival fibroblasts to CS condensate or to nicotine-rich or nicotine-free e-vapor condensates. I'm sorry. I just like make myself laugh reading these out loud, and it's not to like bring down the legitimacy of the paper. It's just like, I know this wasn't necessarily, it wasn't written like, I don't know, the discussion is for layman's terms. Okay, I'm gonna restart this because I need to. So, in a comparative study, repeated exposure of human gingival fibroblasts to CS condensate or to nicotine-rich or nicotine-free e-vapor condensates led to alterations in morphology, suppression of proliferation, and induction of apoptosis. Nailed it. With changes in all three parameters greater in cells exposed to CS condensate. Likewise, both e-cigarette aerosol and CS extract increase cell death in, here we go, adenocarcinomic human alveolar basal epithelial cells. I actually know what that freaking means. And again, the effect was more damaging with CS extract than with e-cigarette aerosol. Detrimental effects found at 2 milligrams/milliliters of CS extract versus 64 milligrams/milliliters of e-cigarette extract, which is in agreement with another study examining battery output voltage and cytotoxicity. That's gross. All this evidence would suggest that e-cigarettes are potentially less harmful than conventional cigarettes. That's in figure 2. Importantly, however, okay, pick one transition word. Importantly, most of these studies have investigated only short-term effects, and the long-term effects of e-cigarette consumption on human health are still unclear and require further study. Okay, now let's go back and start with their second transition word and see which one sounds better. However, most of these studies have investigated only short-term effects, and the long-term effects of e-cigarette consumption on human health are still unclear and require further study. See, you could have just picked one. They both sound good. That doesn't mean you put them both there. Okay. Consequences of nicotine content. Man. Beyond flavor, one of the major issues in the e-liquid market is the range of nicotine content available. Depending on the manufacturer, the concentration of this alkaloid, nailed it, can be presented as low, medium, or high, or expressed as milligrams or milliliters, or as percentage V/V. Oh, this is cool. You guys really should look at figure 2. Like, figure 2 and, does this have a figure number? There's an image. It's on page 3. You should definitely look at it. It's good. Okay. The concentrations range from 0% nicotine-free option, to 20 milligrams milliliters, so 2%. The maximum nicotine threshold, according to Directive 2014 of the European Parliament and the European Union Council. Despite this normative, however, some commercial e-liquids have nicotine concentrations close to 54 milligrams or milliliters, much higher than the limits established by the EU. The mislabeling of nicotine content in e-liquids has been previously addressed. For instance, gas chromatography with a flame ionization detector, GC-FID, revealed inconsistencies in the nicotine content with respect to the manufacturer's declaration of this equation, which equates to a content approximately 22% higher than that indicated in the product label. Of note, several studies have detected nicotine in those e-liquids labeled as nicotine-free. One study detected the presence of nicotine in 5 of 23 nicotine-free labeled e-liquids by nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy. You know what? That's where it is. And another study found nicotine in 13.6% of the nicotine-free e-liquids as analyzed by high-performance liquid chromatography, HPLC. Among the 17 samples tested in this latter study, 14 were identified to be counterfeit or suspected counterfeit. A third study detected nicotine in 7 of 10 nicotine-free refills, although the concentrations were lower than those identified in the previous analysis. Not only is there evidence of mislabeling of nicotine content among refills labeled as nicotine-free, but there also seems to be a history of poor labeling accuracy in nicotine-containing e-liquids. Guys, come on. I have no shame. I'm just going to drink it straight from the bottle. This is literally the best juice. Okay. A comparison of the serum levels of nicotine from e-cigarette or conventional cigarette consumption has been recently reported. Participants took one vape from an e-cigarette with at least 12 milligrams of nicotine or inhaled a conventional cigarette every 20 seconds for 10 minutes. What a study. Ay. Sounds like a drunk night. Blood samples were collected from 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 15 minutes after the first puff, the nicotine serum levels were measured by liquid chromatography mass spectrometry, LCMS. The results revealed higher serum levels of nicotine in the conventional CS group than in the e-cigarette group. However, e-cigarettes containing 20 milliliters of nicotine are more equivalent to normal cigarettes based on the delivery of approximately 1 milligram of nicotine every 5 minutes. In this line, a study compared to the acute impact of CS versus e-cigarette vaping with equivalent nicotine content in healthy smokers and non-smokers. Both increased markers of oxidative stress and decreased NO bioavailability, flow-mediated dilation, and vitamin E levels, showing no significant differences between tobacco and e-cigarette exposure. Well, apparently, with the mislabeling. Oh, I didn't know this was this is literally a transition word, inasmuch. It's INASMUCH, inasmuch. That I'm going to use that one on my papers this year. Inasmuch, short-term e-cigarette use in healthy smokers resulted in marked impairment of endothelial function and an increase in arterial stiffness. Similar effects on endothelial dysfunction and arterial stiffness were found in animals when they were exposed to e-cigarette vapor either for several days or chronically. In contrast, other studies found acute microvascular endothelial dysfunction, increased oxidative stress, and arterial stiffness in smokers after exposure to e-cigarettes with nicotine, but not after e-cigarettes without nicotine. In women smokers, a study found a significant difference in stiffness after smoking just one tobacco cigarette, but not after use of e-cigarettes. It is well known that nicotine is extremely addictive and has a multitude of harmful effects. Yeah, that's true. It's just true. I'm going to do a paper about the tobacco leaf because it's quite interesting. Okay. And nicotine has a significant biological activity and adversely affects several physiological systems, including the cardiovascular, respiratory, immunological, and reproductive systems, and can also compromise lung and kidney function. Recently, a subchronic whole-body exposure of e-liquid for 2 hours a day, 5 days a week for 30 days, containing PG alone or PG with nicotine, and that's 25 milligrams, to wild type, WT, animals are knockout, KO, animals in A7 nicotinic acetylcholine receptor, and that big old thing right there, don't know what that is, revealed a part, okay, I'll read it, NACHRA7-KO revealed a partly NACHRA7- dependent lung inflammation, while subchronic exposure to PG nicotine promote NACH RA7 dependent increased levels of different cytokines and chemokines in the okay, this is another word. Bronchoalveolar lavage fluid, BALF. BALF, BALF. You baffled me. Such as IL-1A, IL-2, IL-9, interferon, and this little Y thing, and then IFN, and it looks like a Y. Granulocyte macrophage, colony stimulating factor, my head is hurting, GM-CSF, monocyte chemoattractant protein-1, and MCP-1/CCL2, and regulated on activation, normal T cell expressed and secreted RANTES/CCL5. The enhanced levels of IL-1B, IL-5, and TNFA were in NACH RA7 independent. In general, oh my gosh, that really hurt my head. Like, the front of my head is hurting. In general, most of the cytokines detected in BALF best acronym so far in this paper, except for ENDS, were significantly increased in WT mice exposed to PG with nicotine compared to PG alone or air control. Some of these effects were found to be through nicotine activation of NF-k big B, signaling albeit in females but not in males. In addition, PG with nicotine caused increased macrophage and CD4+/CD8+ T lymphocyte cell counts in BALF. Compared to air control, but these effects were ameliorated when animals were subchronically exposed to PG alone. I'm sorry, this isn't funny. It's just that one is. Of note, another study indicated that although RANTES/CCL5 and CCR-mRNA, know what that is, were upregulated in flavor/nicotine containing e-cigarette users, vaping flavor, and nicotine-less e-cigarettes did not significantly dysregulate cytokine and inflammasome activation. Nailed it. I just self-fived myself. So, in addition to its toxicological effects of fetus development, nicotine can disrupt brain development in adolescents and young adults. Several studies have also suggested that nicotine is potentially carcinogenic, but more work is needed to prove its carcinogenicity independently of the combustion products of tobacco. You know, I feel like I'm nailing these words because right before I started reading and recording, I meditated, and it's actually helping me read better, but it's kind of making my brain go crazy right now reading this paper. In this latter regard, no differences were encountered in the frequency of tumor appearance in rats subjected to long-term 2 years inhalation of nicotine when compared with control rats. Despite the lack of carcinogenicity, that sounds better, evidence, it has been reported that nicotine promotes tumor cell survival by decreasing apoptosis and increasing proliferation, indicating that it may work as a tumor enhancer. In a very recent study, chronic administration of nicotine to mice, 1 milligram kilogram every 3 days for a 60-day period, enhanced brain metastasis by skewing the polarity of M2 microglia, which increases metastatic tumor growth. Assuming that a conventional cigarette contains 0.172 to 1.702 milligrams of nicotine, the daily nicotine dose administered to these animals corresponds to 40 to 400 cigarettes for a 70 kilogram adult, which is a dose of an extremely heavy smoker. Whoa. We would argue that further studies with chronic administration of a low dose of nicotine are required to clearly evaluate its impact on carcinogenicity. In the aforementioned study exposing human gingival fibroblasts to CS condensate or to nicotine-rich or nicotine-free e-vapor condensates, the detrimental effects were greater in cells exposed to nicotine-rich condensate than to nicotine-free condensate, suggesting that the possible injurious effects of nicotine should be considered when purchasing e-refills. It is also noteworthy that among the 3 most cytotoxic vapors for HEVEC evaluated in the Putzhammer study, 2 were nicotine-free, which suggests that nicotine is not the only hazardous component in e-cigarettes. The word putz really gets me. The lethal dose of nicotine for an adult is estimated at 30 to 60 milligrams. Given that nicotine easily diffuses from the dermis to the bloodstream, acute nicotine exposure by e-liquid spilling 5 milliliters of a 20 milliliter nicotine-containing refill is equivalent to 100 milligrams of nicotine, can easily be toxic or deadly. Thus, devices with rechargeable refills are another issue of concern with e-cigarettes, especially when e-liquids are not sold in child-safe containers, increasing the risk of spilling, swallowing, or breathing. That's scary. Okay. These data overall indicate that the harmful effects of nicotine should not be underestimated. Despite the established regulations, some inaccuracies in nicotine content labeling remain in different brands of e-liquids. Consequently, stricter regulation and a higher quality control in the e-liquid industry are required. Labeling. Effects of humectants and their heating-related products. Oh my gosh. Okay. In this particular aspect, again, the composition of the e-liquid varies significantly among different commercial brands. I mean, that's fine. The most common and major components of e-liquids are PG or 1,2-propanediol and glycerol or glycerine, propane 1,2,3-triol. Both types of compounds are used as humectants to prevent the e-liquid from drying out and are classified by the FDA as generally recognized as safe. That's like a really weird classification. Generally recognized as safe. Like, yeah, but like, let's just like put it in context of like general population. Like never mind. In fact, they are widely used as alimentary and pharmaceutical products. In an analysis of 54 commercially available e-liquids, PG and glycerol, I totally spaced, like my head hurts from reading this, were detected in almost all samples at concentrations ranging from 0.4% to 98% ranging from 0.4% to 98%, and the average was 57%, and from 0.3% to 95%, and the average was 37%, respectively. With regards to toxicity, little is known about the effects of humectants when they are heated and chronically inhaled. Studies have indicated that the PG can induce respiratory irritation and increase the probability of asthma development, and both PG and glycerol from e-cigarettes might reach concentrations sufficiently. Both PG and glycerol from e-cigarettes might reach concentrations sufficiently high to potentially cause irritation of the airways. Indeed, the latter study established that one e-cigarette puff results in a PG exposure of 430 to 603 milligrams/m3, which is higher than the levels reported to cause airway irritation. The average is 309 milligrams. Then that's based on a human study. The same study established that one e-cigarette puff results in a glycerol exposure of 348 to 495 milligrams, which is close to the levels reported to cause airway irritation in rats. 662 milligrams is for rats. Airway epithelial injury induced by acute vaping of PG and glycerol aerosols, 50/50 volume/volume, with or without nicotine, has been reported in 2 randomized clinical trials in young tobacco smokers. In vitro, aerosols from glycerol only containing refills showed cytotoxicity in A549 and human embryonic stem cells, even at a low battery output voltage. Whoa, tripped over that. PG was also found to affect early neurodevelopment in a zebrafish model. Hold on. Let me shake my juice. Oh, I love this juice. Okay, where was I? Okay, zebrafish model. Another important issue is that under heating conditions, PG can produce, there's this word, acetaldehyde or formaldehyde. I know those words, I don't know why I can't pronounce them. What the hell? Ew, I need to stop vaping. I lost my spot. Okay, while glycerol can also generate acrolein. All carbonyls with a well-documented toxicity, although assuming 15 puffs per e-cigarette unit, carbonyls produced by PG or glycerol heating would be below the maximum levels found in a conventional cigarette combustion. Nevertheless, further studies are required to properly test the, why can I say this word, deleterious effects of all these compounds at psychological doses resembling those to which individuals are chronically exposed. Although PG and glycerol are the major components of e-liquids, other components have been detected. When the aerosols of 4 commercially available e-fluids, chosen from a top 10 list of best e-cigarettes of 2014, were analyzed by gas chromatography mass spectrometry, after heating, numerous compounds were detected, with nearly half of them not previously identified, thus suggesting that the heating process per se generates new compounds of unknown consequence. Of note, the analysis identified formaldehyde, acetaldehyde, and acrolein, 3 carbonyl compounds with known high toxicity. While no information was given regarding formaldehyde and acetaldehyde concentrations, the authors calculated that 1 puff could result in an acrolein exposure of 0.003 to 0.15 milliliters, assuming 40 milliliters per puff and 15 puffs per e-cigarette unit, according to manufacturers. Each e-cigarette unit would generate approximately 1.8 to 9 units of acrolein, which is less than the levels of acrolein emitted by a conventional cigarette, which is 18.3 to 98.2 units a gram. I think that's what that means. However, given the e-cigarette units of vaping are not well established, users may puff intermittently throughout the whole day. Thus, assuming 400 to 500 puffs per cartridge, users could be exposed up to 300 units of acrolein. In a similar study, acrolein was found in 11 of 12 aerosols tested with a similar content range. I'm going to start skipping the parentheses. In the same study, both formaldehyde and acetaldehyde were detected in all the aerosols tested with contents of 0.2 to 5.6 units a gram and 0.11 to 1.36 units a gram. Okay, now they just took them out of the hypotheses. Or the hypothesis, they took them out of the parentheses. They're like, no, you're gonna know these. Alright, respectively per e-cigarette unit, it is important to point out that the levels of these toxic products in e-cigarette aerosols were significantly lower than those found in CS, 9 times lower for formaldehyde, and 450 times lower for acetaldehyde, and 15 times lower for acrolein. Other compounds that have been detected in aerosols include acetamide, a potential human carcinogen, and some aldehydes. Although their levels were minimal, oh, that was it. Okay. Interestingly, the existence of harmful concentrations of diethylene glycol, a known cytotoxic agent in e-liquid aerosols, is contentious, with some studies detecting its presence and others finding low subtoxic concentrations. Similar observations were reported for the content ethylene glycol. In this regard, either it was detected at concentrations that did not exceed the authorized limit, or it was absent from the aerosols produced. Only one study revealed its presence at high concentration in a very low number of samples. Nevertheless, its presence above 1 milligram is not allowed by the FDA. It's not generally recognized. Figure 1 lists the main compounds detected in aerosols derived from the humectant heating and their potential damaging effects. It would seem that future studies should analyze the possible toxic effects of humectants and related products at concentrations similar to those that e-cigarette vapors are exposed to reach conclusive results. This is the impact of flavoring compounds. Okay. The range of e-liquid flavors available to consumers is extensive and is used to attract both current smokers and new e-cigarette users, which is a growing public health concern. In fact, over 5 million middle and high school students were current users of e-cigarettes in 2019, and appealing flavors have been identified as the primary reason for e-cigarette consumption in 81% of young users. It's kind of like smoking alcohol. Well, not the same, but I don't know, I just thought about that too. Disregard. Since 2016, the FDA regulates the flavors used in the e-cigarette market and has recently published an enforcement policy on unauthorized flavors, including fruit and mint flavors, which are more appealing to young users. However, the long-term effects of all flavor chemicals used by the industry, which are more than 15,000, remain unknown, and they are not usually included in the product label. Furthermore, the labeling problem. Furthermore, there's no safety guarantee since they may harbor potential toxic or irritating properties. To me, this sounds like no one's like they're avoiding responsibility of actually, regulating this if this is what they want. Instead, they're like, let's just not make it taste good anymore because we want them to smoke cigarettes, or we don't want them to do either of these, but we don't want it to taste good. And it's like, why don't you just put the money where it's if this is going to be a thing, and it's people like this stuff, just fix your system, whatever. I don't know anything. I'm just reading papers. Furthermore, there is no safety guarantee since they may harbor potential toxic or irritating properties. I wonder if that's on the label. With regards to the multitude of available flavors, some have demonstrated cytotoxicity. Ball evaluated the toxicity of 36 different e-liquids and 29 different flavors on human embryonic stem cells, mouse neural stem cells, and human pulmonary fibroblasts using a metabolic activity assay. In general, those e-liquids that were bubblegum, butterscotch, and caramel flavored, those can all go anyways, did not show any overt cytotoxicity even at the highest dose tested. By contrast, those e-liquids from Freedom Smoke Menthol Arctic and Global Smoke Caramel flavors had marked cytotoxic effects on pulmonary fibroblasts, and those with cinnamon Ceylon flavor were the most cytotoxic in all cell lines. A further study from the same group revealed that high cytotoxicity is a recurrent feature of cinnamon-flavored e-liquids. That's fine, that probably doesn't taste good anyways. In this line, results from GC-MS and HPLC analyses indicated that cinnamaldehyde, CAD, and 2-methoxycinnamaldehyde, that sounds gross, but do not dipropylene glycol or vanillin were mainly responsible for the high cytotoxicity of cinnamon-flavored e-liquids. Other flavoring, I hope that's as annoying as it sounds. Other flavoring related compounds that are associated with respiratory complications such as diacetyl 2,3-pentadiene or acetone, were found in 47 of 51 aerosols of flavored e-liquids tested. Allen calculated an average of 239 units a gram of diacetyl per cartridge, assuming again 400 puffs per cartridge and 40 milliliters per puff. Is it possible? We can use contractions, guys. it's possible to estimate an average of 0.015, oh, I know what ppm means, of diacetyl per puff. Excuse me, which could compromise normal lung function in the long term. The cytotoxic and pro-inflammatory effects of different e-cigarette flavoring chemicals were also tested on 2 human monocytic cell lines, Monomax6 and UN37. Among the flavoring chemicals tested, CAD was found to be the most toxic, and O-vanillin and pentanedione also showed significant cytotoxicity. By contrast, acetylene, diacetyl, maltone, and coumarin did not show any toxicity at the concentrations assayed. Oh my goodness, guys. These words make my mouth hurt. So I'm skipping down to e-cigarettes as a smoking cessation tool. And yeah, because it's already like longer than I wanted it to be, but it's okay. It's 14 pages, so and surprisingly, there's only 3 pages of references. Like, that's a shocker to me. E-cigarettes as a smoking cessation tool, that's the title of this section. CS contains a large number of substances, about 7,000 different constituents, I can talk, in total, with sizes ranging from atoms to particulate matter, and with many hundreds likely responsible for the harmful effects of this habit. Given that tobacco is being substituted in great part by e-cigs, with different chemical compositions, manufacturers claim that e-cigs will not cause lung disease, such as lung cancer, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or cardiovascular disorders often associated with conventional cigarette consumption. However, the World Health Organization suggests that e-cigarettes cannot be considered as a viable method to quit smoking due to a lack of evidence. This sounds like a quit smoking ad. Indeed, the results of studies addressing the use of e-cigs as a smoking cessation tool remain controversial. Moreover, both FDA and CDC are actively investigating the incidence of severe respiratory symptoms associated with the use of vaping products, because many e-liquids contain nicotine, which is well known for its powerful addictive properties. E-cigarette users can easily switch to conventional cigarette smoking, avoiding smoking cessation. Nevertheless, the possibility of vaping nicotine-free e-cigs has led to the branding of these devices as smoking cessation tools. Okay. In a recently published randomized trial of 886 subjects who were willing to quit smoking, good job guys, the abstinence rate was found to be twice as high in the e-cig group than in the nicotine replacement group, 18% versus 9.9% after 1 year. Of note, the abstinence rate, I love that they call it abstinence. I know it's like a correct way, but it's just, that's not what I think of when I hear abstinence. I lost my spot. Okay, so the 1 year abstinence was significantly higher in the e-cig group, 80%, than in the nicotine replacement products group, which was 9%, which is what I just said, but I skipped over everything else, so just ignore that. On the other hand, it is estimated that COPD could become the 3rd leading cause of death in 2030. Wow. Given that COPD is generally associated with smoking habits, this is a good thing. Well, not really. Approximately 15 to 20% of smokers develop COPD. Smoking cessation is imperative among COPD smokers. That means you have to literally live on like you have to carry air around with you. Published data revealed a clear reduction of conventional cigarette consumption in COPD smokers, good job, that switched to e-cigarettes. Indeed, a significant reduction in exacerbations was observed, and consequently, the ability to perform physical activities was improved when data was compared with these non-vapor COPD smokers. Oh my God. A longer follow-up of the COPD patients is required to find out whether they have quit conventional smoking or even vaping, since the final goal under these circumstances is to quit both habits. Yeah, that's what you signed up for. Based on the current literature, it seems that several factors have led to the success of e-cigs use as a smoking cessation tool. First, some e-cigarette flavors positively affect smoking cessation outcomes among smokers. Second, e-cigs have been described to improve smoking cessation rate only among highly dependent smokers and not among conventional smokers. suggesting that the individual degree of nicotine dependence plays an important role in this process. Third, the general belief of their relative harmfulness to consumers' health compared with conventional combustion tobacco. And finally, the exposure to point of sale marketing of e-cigarettes has also been identified to affect the smoking cessation success. Oh my gosh. I don't know why, but reading this is making my jaw hurt. Like, I feel like I'm speaking literally a different language right now. Okay. I'm fine. Whew. Oh, and if you're watching, I have, I like listening to like binaural beats, and I like the backgrounds on them. So this is raising like positive vibrations and stuff. So while you're listening to this, I'm raising your vibrations. So enjoy. All right, implications of e-cig consumption in COVID-19 time. The before, the time after the before time. Different reports have pointed out that smokers and vapers are more vulnerable to SARS-CoV-2, which is severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 infections, or more prone to adverse outcomes if they suffer COVID-19. However, while a systematic review indicated that cigarette smoking is probably associated with enhanced damage from COVID-19, a meta-analysis did not, yet the latter had several limitations due to the small sample sizes. Most of these reports linking COVID-19 harmful effects with smoking or vaping are based on their capability of increasing the expression of angiotensin-converting enzyme 2, ACE2, in the lung. It is well known that ACE2 is the gate for SARS-CoV-2 entrance to the airways. Yep, it is well known. And it is mainly expressed in type 2 alveolar epithelial cells and alveolar macrophages. To date, most of the studies in this field indicate that current smokers have high expression of ACE2 in the airways than healthy non-smokers. However, while a recent report indicated that e-cigarette vaping also caused nicotine-dependent ACE2 upregulation, others have revealed that neither acute inhalation of e-cigarette vapors nor e-cigarette vapors had increased lung ACE2 expression regardless nicotine presence in the e-liquid. In regard to these contentions, current knowledge suggests that increased ACE2 expression is not necessarily linked to enhanced susceptibility to SARS infection and adverse outcome. Indeed, elderly population express lower levels of ACE2 than young people, and SARS interaction further decreases ACE2 expression. Oh my gosh. Therefore, it is plausible that the increased susceptibility to disease progression and the subsequent fatal outcome in this population is related to poor antigen 1 through 7 generation, the main peptide generated by ACE2, and probably to their inaccessibility to its anti-inflammatory effects. It seems that all the effort towards increasing ACE2 expression may result in a better resolution of the mnemonic process associated to this pandemic disease. Additional complications associated to COVID-19 are increased thrombotic events and cytokine storm. That's interesting. In the lungs, e-cig consumption has been correlated to toxicity, oxidative stress, and inflammatory response. More recently, a study revealed that while the use of nicotine flavor-containing e-cigs led to significant cytokine dysregulation and potential inflammasome activation, none of these effects were detected in non-flavored and non-nicotine-containing e-cigs. Therefore, taken together, these observations, e-cigarette use may still be a potent risk factor for severe COVID-19 development, depending on the flavor and nicotine content. It seems that either smoking or nicotine vaping may adversely impact on COVID-19 outcome. However, additional follow-up studies are required in COVID-19 pandemic to clarify the complications of the lung and cardiovascular stuff from SARS. I just really don't like that every sentence starts with like, however, furthermore, therefore, like, just start it with the word the. All right. Okay. This is the conclusion. The harmful effects, there we go. The harmful effects of CS and their deleterious consequences are both well recognized and widely investigated. However, based on the studies carried out so far, it seems that e-cigarette consumption is less toxic than tobacco smoking. This does not necessarily mean that e-cigarettes are free from hazardous effects. Studies investigating their long-term effects on human health are urgently required. The main studies needed in this field are summarized in Table 3. If you keep starting your sentences with transition words, one after another, you become a passive writer. So make your point. I got really angry about it. It was just a lot. I'm okay. It's just a tip. The composition of e-liquids requires stricter regulation as they can be easily bought online, and many incidences of mislabeling have been detected, which can seriously affect consumers' health. Beyond their unknown long-term effects on human health, the extended list of appealing flavors available seem to attract new never smokers, which is especially worrying among young users. There is still a lack of evidence of e-cigarette consumption as a smoking cessation method. E-cigarettes containing nicotine may relieve the craving for smoking, but not the conventional cigarette smoking habit. There is a strong difference of opinion on e-cigarettes between countries. Whereas countries like Brazil, Uruguay, and India have banned the sale of e-cigs, others such as the UK support this device to quit smoking. The increasing number of adolescent users and reported deaths in the United States prompted the government to ban the sale of flavored e-cigs in 2020. Yeah, I remember that. The difference in opinion worldwide may be due to different restrictions imposed. For example, while no more than 20 milliliters of nicotine is allowed in the EU, e-liquids with 59 milligrams DL are currently available in the US. Nevertheless, despite the national restrictions, see how much better that sounds, users can easily access foreign or even counterfeit products online. In regard to COVID-19 pandemic, the actual literature suggests that nicotine vaping may display adverse outcomes. Follow-up studies are necessary to clarify the impact of e-cig consumption on human health and SARS-CoV infection. In conclusion, the only appropriate transition word in this whole thing, e-cigarettes could be a good alternative to conventional tobacco cigarettes with less side effects. A stricter sale control, a proper regulation of the industry, including flavor restriction, as well as further toxicological studies, including their chronic effects, are warranted. You guys, thank you for, sitting through this one with me, because I got heated. Okay, I'm fine. So, let me give you a spiel. Thank you for listening to Research Reads. I have decided to start posting daily, and I seriously love doing this. I have no idea why I love doing this. This is just, I don't know. So, don't forget to follow Research Reads, anchor.fm. Please follow on there. Go to my website, researchreads.com. You can follow on Spotify. I'm on Google Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, SoundCloud. There's a few episodes, Buzzsprouts, all the good stuff. On Spotify, there's voice messages, so please leave a comment. All show notes are located on the website, researchreads.com. And if you would like me to read your published research paper or you have a topic, please send me an email at readingresearch2u@gmail.com.